I love love. I love to be loved and I love to give love. I have wondered about love. I have sought love in beautiful places and not so beautiful places. I have done things to gain love in amazing ways and not so amazing ways. And so when I was thinking about this episode, I wanted to make sure that it communicates a beautiful journey of moving from a place of not understanding love or seeing a different version of love and then growing into a beautiful version of love. Our guest is someone that I met in 2014, and when I tell you that this man has been through a wonderful transformation of the definition of love, oh listen, you better believe me. I'm excited to chat with him, and I hope that this episode is going to encourage you to find love in all the right places and to embrace it and keep it. Enjoy. All right. Welcome, Simon, to the Storybook Podcast. I'm very excited to have you. It's so interesting to remember how far we've come in terms of knowing each other. I was a journalist and student at the time, and so I loved interviewing people, and you were a student at the University of Nairobi, and I think basically this is how we connected. Please tell us a little about you. What were you studying? What were you doing? And what was your state of mind at the time? Mentally, psychologically, emotionally? Yeah, go for it.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Simon. Yes, at 2014, I was at the University of Nairobi, and I was pursuing a degree in engineering called geospatial engineering. Yes, was a very determined young man. Just wanted to change the narrative from how I grew up, and I was at the university just trying to make the best out of my life. Yes, by that time I think I had become a believer, that is believer in Christ. So my life was pretty much starting off, I would say, in that period. I had grown up in a Christian family, but it was at the university where I first owned my faith. So at the time, I think I was just a new believer.
I like that shift, possibly because it's a journey that I can relate to. Getting to a point where I wanted more. I wanted to move away from pursuing that which will get me validation by people versus ensuring that I understand my purpose and seek it out actively. Was there a particular trigger, Simon, that made you want to ground what you do in purpose that led you or influenced you towards God? Was there a particular trigger?
My reasons for doing engineering were very different, and once I got to the university, I think my motivation was I just wanted to be respected by people. I wanted a career that I would make so much money and change my narrative from growing up in a poor background. Those were the motivations behind why I picked engineering. When I became a believer, a lot of things came up in my life, and I began to see life as more than just making money, more than just a career, but more in your existence. What do you think will give you most fulfillment? And so when that was brought up to my attention, when I started thinking about life, I realized the reasons why I chose engineering was very skewed. That's not what I wanted to do with life. So I began exploring the ways that the Lord might be calling me into. So that's how I ended up changing what I was doing.
And I believe in such a beautiful and profound way, it answers my question, and it reminds me of a statement I made to myself just a couple of days, and I said I knew I was healing when I began to say that my life is beautiful and one that is worth living. And so to hear you break down how you came to a place of understanding that you wanted more beyond what you believed in, and seeking the Lord to give you that direction to fulfillment and fullness. It's very beautiful. And given the background and the experiences that you went through. I'm really glad that you fought for yourself, and I wish you growth as you continue, which is one of the agendas that we try to establish here at the Storybook, to support fellow young Africans in their healing journey. So I hope that they're listening to you and getting nuggets of hope from your story, knowing that they too can make it to a better place. And so there you are. You've completed your geospatial engineering, you've gone through your rediscovery journey, you're finding this new Simon that you're loving and embracing, and then you travel abroad. So tell us a little bit about this journey of traveling abroad and how it ties into the bigger picture, and also how it helped you transition into the young African man that you are now.
So I loved music from when I was very little. So that was what drew me to the church that I started attending, Mamlaka Hill Chapel. It's just next to the university. So I used to walk there and just feel drawn by, the music that was coming out of that place, and started questioning a lot about my decisions and how my life was turning out. And I remember just desiring change, and one time just taking that step of faith and getting into the church, and that became the beginning of this journey that I'm on, because it was there where I felt like a sense of family. I found people who really cared about me and were interested about my life, and seeing what God could do. So I got opportunities to serve in that church, and while serving, I began to see there's more to life. I began to feel the joy of being in a community of people who don't judge you, who love you, and who embrace you for who you are, despite your past and despite the mistakes that you've made in life. They saw who I could become, and that really motivated me. And so they gave me this opportunity to serve, and while serving, I got an opportunity to travel. So that was very exciting for me, because the first trip that I did was to New Zealand. I think we call it the farthest, the farthest end of the earth, if there's something like that. And I remember just at first going on that trip, the excitement was more of, I'm leaving my own culture for the first time. I'm leaving the country for the first time. I'm boarding a plane, the first of many things. So it was exciting, and it felt like a dream. And I can tell you that at first, like, I felt it was a dream until my flight to Australia. That's when I was like, oh wow, this is really happening. And so when I got to New Zealand, it was an amazing experience. I think it was very eye-opening as well, just being in a culture that is different than mine, but realizing there are things that we share in common, there are things that are different, our upbringing. It began to stir the curiosity in me to want to interact with people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, and just see how they do life, and also as well as share my story. So I got a chance to visit schools. I got a chance to meet people in their homes, speak in some churches over there. And what amazed me was how my story had an impact on people. I didn't think that, person like me, born from a poor background, that my story would, that people would resonate with my story, or they would be inspired by my story and want to change. And that began the journey of asking myself, what am I called to? What is my purpose? And if God can use me to just, change people's lives, to inspire people's life, to feel like there's more to life, there's hope. It made me start thinking about that. And that's how I began feeling this desire in my heart to want to, dedicate my life fully, serving God and serving people. So I got opportunities to go to New Zealand, travel to Canada at some point, travel to the States several times, and all these times just interacting with different people, it brought me so much joy. And I knew for sure this is what I want to do. I want to serve God and serve people. So that's how I ended up with the travel. So mostly it was because of my serving in church that allowed me to travel.
It's interesting that you mentioned the word joy. Just before you mentioned the word joy, I said to myself, I can sense so much joy in his voice. As you tell this story of traveling and getting to interact with people from different cultures and see how you fit into the bigger picture, into that picture. So is there a particular reason why it still brings you so much joy? Beyond it surprising you that, wow, your story actually matters and you do actually matter. And is there any other reason?
I began feeling a sense of fulfillment, I would say. I felt like I wasn't just living the cycle of, just doing whatever you want to do to exist or to survive. I felt like my life was beginning to matter, and my life was, had a more impactful meaning than just going to school, studying, getting a degree, and starting making money. I began to see the different stories of people. Like as you interact with people, you get to hear different stories of their backgrounds and just to hear, the journey they are on. And there's that, you see the brokenness in the world, you see the brokenness in people's lives and the need for hope and the need to be assured of, a different kind of trajectory and a different kind of life, and realizing that my part of the story was really impacting them in a way that they could start thinking about what their purpose is and wanting to change the narrative, wanting to, heal from the brokenness, whatever that looks like. And the countries that I traveled to, they had very different, many different issues. So as much as it was a developed country, they had a set of problems, I would say different from mine. So as much as, my background was more of, poverty and all that, you find that in other cultures, they have a different set of challenges growing up, whether that be, being in a blended family or, all these kind of things. So I realized that my life was more meaningful as I interacted with people, and just the desire to want to share my life with other people, and of course share my journey of what the Lord has done in my life and how he has changed my life and how I feel like I have a sense of purpose as I do life. Despite the many challenges that we still have in life, there was that hope that I had, knowing that my life was on a good trajectory. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's how I would respond to that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And the part where you say the part of the story, well, in my perspective, it does speak into the whole vision of you trying to find your purpose and seeing where you fit into the story, perhaps shedding light in darkness, providing healing in a broken world, as you call it, a world that is filled with brokenness. And ordinarily we go abroad and look at them as, oh wow, champagne problems, you don't have anything to worry about. But hearing you speak about some issues, including the ones in like blended families, as you mentioned, and how they provide an opportunity for us to administer, share God's love, and also share our story. I find that really wonderful and beautiful, and we'd definitely be interested in hearing more of this story, especially since we cover a diaspora version of this podcast, because I think a lot of the youth who are abroad, they struggle to fit into the picture confidently. They end up shrinking or feeling that their story doesn't matter, and you are able to break through that and see that you can be outside of your culture and still matter. Listening to you speak, Simon, and talking about your journey, going abroad and moving from your comfort zone, it does sound like a love journey, a journey where you got to know God, love Him more, see Him manifest in different versions, and see His heart manifest in different occasions through different people, and also finding meaning and purposeful fulfillment, as you call it, and affirmation in a context that is outside of what you grew up in. And so love is a major defining factor for the paths that we choose to take. I think that's a given, that once you find your purpose, it can veer you into the direction that you love. Now, given the experiences that you've talked about, especially growing up from the experience of seeing what happened between your parents, how has your understanding and definition of love shifted as a young African man through your childhood memories into now your adult life?
Well, I would say that growing up, I felt this need in my heart. I had this longing in my heart. I know that looking around me, I desired to have like a normal family, a father and a mother in my life, and I didn't have that. Yes, I had a loving grandma who raised me up, but I felt that I needed more. And so the dilemma or the tension that I found myself in was just what society probably defines as love. They would say, if you're eating and if you have a place to sleep, you have something to eat, your school fees is being paid for, that should be enough. But I always felt, that's different. I felt this deep longing in me that I couldn't explain. With my experience, I know that I had this desire for being secure and being safe. So I didn't have that because the people who were supposed to protect me didn't offer that. I knew I desired to be affirmed. And so I wanted to excel just to be told I'm proud of you. So I had this sense of the things that I thought would bring me joy were not bringing me joy because I had these expectations that were not met. And so I always felt there was more, trying to seek validation in that. But I think how that changed, it's hard for African men to be told they're loved or even to be hugged or to be told people are proud of you. Each and every one of us have those innate desires. I think they're God-given so that we might seek Him and know Him. And so my transformation began when I understood God's love. I understood that God loved me not because of what I was doing, but because of simply, who I am as a person. Like in me, I have, the image of God in me. That began to change a lot of things. There was the big factor of the people surrounding me, the community, who helped change some of my perspective about who God was. I know just the experience of having my dad kill my mom distorted my view of fatherhood. But then I found this amazing youth pastor who modeled a father figure, and he helped shape my view of God as a father. And so just as I continued to dig deeper and know more about God, I realized there's this deep love that God has for me. He wants my life to be the best. He wants me to know Him and to have a relationship with Him. And that changed a lot of things. It changed some of the insecurities that I had. I didn't feel like I needed to do something to be validated, as long as I understood my identity as God's child, adopted into God's family. So that changed a lot. It started the healing process. Of course, healing is a journey. We still continue to grow in these things, but it began a journey of helping me realize of what my identity, and that changed a lot of things. So I would say there were these things that I had, these innate desires in me while growing up. They were not met the way I thought they would be met. And I thought if I got those, I would feel the most loved. But then when I knew and I understood of my identity in Christ, and then finding this new community who are fulfilling these desires. I found people who, would tell me they're proud of who I was becoming. Told me, that they love me, and that changed a lot of things in my life. So I would say that has been my journey. Before knowing my identity in God, I had all these things that were trying to fill that void. And of course, not knowing better, I was trying to seek them in other places where I thought would give me that, but they never gave me that. It was until I understood my identity in God that I began to feel a sense of love. And it makes sense to me, just reading scriptures saying that we love because He first loved us. So we feel that we are able to love because God first loved us. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm so proud of the man that you have become and the one you continue to become. So kudos to that. And guys, first of all, Simon be a whole husband, okay? So depending on where you're listening to us from, please drop your fire emoji in the chat, okay? Let's celebrate him. He's a whole husband despite the intensity of his journey, and he's made it to this achievement. I call it great because my understanding of marriage is that it's a beautiful gift. It's a treasure from heaven. To see you shift to get to a place where you're able to commit in that way, to me it's phenomenal. You talk a lot about community. Do you feel that community plays a big role in leading you to a marital commitment?
Like, we have these capacities that we are given. I would say everyone has them. And so, of course, our family of origin is supposed to either build up those capacities so that we might know God. But unfortunately, this gets distorted depending on how you grow up. Human beings, we keep on attaching as we grow. So I think community, the role it has to play is it awakens these desires in a sense that helps you to see and know God. Like a sense of, belonging. Like you have this community of people who, they're not related to you by blood, but they love you. And they genuinely care about you and they want the best for you. So they help you stay clear of, bad decisions that you might make. I remember at some point I wanted to quit school at the university in my second year, because it was getting harder. And I remember just having that wonderful community around me, just to minister, or rather to give me, wisdom in terms of, what I wanted to do then. And I felt I was making the best decision. But them being there and telling me, guiding me in the right way. So in a sense, they awaken these desires, these God-given desires that we have. Once you start this journey of healing, when you become a secure person and you're in kind of, you're forming secure attachment, these people help awaken those desires or help heal those distorted desires as we have them. So you have the safety of knowing that you belong, knowing that you're included, knowing that there are people who are proud of you. You feel affirmed in the things that you do. They remind you of what your identity is and correct you, where you go wrong. So there's a lot of guidance and you're not afraid to make mistakes. First, like being a believer, I know that I'm fully loved and I'm fully known. So it frees you to become yourself. And then you have this community of people around you who affirms that in you. So there's a great sense of having people around you affirming those things, helping you discover more of your purpose, helping you in those instances where you have so many doubts about life, or when challenges come, because there will always be challenges that comes with life. So you need people to be that voice of reason, those people who will steer you in the right direction, those people who will not judge you, but still correct you in a loving way, so that you don't feel like, these people hate me or these people don't care, they just care about themselves. So I think that the place for community, and I believe that we were created for community. We are wired to relate with other people, and those the community helps you discover yourself and discover your purposes in an environment that helps you to grow more into becoming a secure being or forming healthy, secure attachments.
I love that. And it's interesting that the sense of community does give you a place of security, but it also contributes heavily to the distortion and the unmet expectations that you've also talked about before. So, out of curiosity, what are some of the things that you do or practices that you have, Simon, as a young African man to make sure that you remain grounded, as in you remain grounded in the fruits that you've already bore from building a healthy environment around you?
Uh, well, the practices, of course, one is having people around you that really speak life into you, that guide you. I know that I have older men that I look up to, that I consider as older brothers that really guide me. Like as you're talking about the journey of love, I know if I followed my heart, I would have made so many wrong decisions because sometimes the heart wants what it wants, but then without proper guideline, you might end up wrecking your life. So I've found having those kind of people are really helpful. So of course I have older mature men who I run by some of my decisions that help me, of course not make decisions for me, but give me a perspective and give me their wisdom based on their experiences. And then I have friends who the same peers that we walk with and share this journey. Community is a big part of it. Then second is the discipline of reading God's word. I think a lot of my life and my values have come as a result of just the way that I relate with God, just helping me to see that I'm not just living for myself, because if I'm living for myself, it's so easy to lower the bar or lower the standard or excuse yourself. But if you live for a higher purpose, it helps keep you accountable by the things that you do, and then you want to live a more meaningful life. So that's the disciplines that I would say that I've gotten to do, like praying, reading God's word, having fellowship with other people, add more or rather help me relax and address some of these things. Like I like being in nature, so I do those things. Like in my personal walk with God, I call them practicing delight. So the things that make you happy, or the things that help you see life in a more, I mean, we are in a broken world, so you need to look at those things that help you see the beauty that can come out of the broken life that we have. So there are many other things, but I would narrow them down to reading God's word, praying, being in a community that help keep you accountable, and of course serving. I think serving other people really helps you, because you realize that you don't just live for yourself. So serving God and serving other people and trying to be a decent human being in a place where not so many people care much.
And when I do these beautiful things, like going to nature, lighting a scented candle, I call it the soft life. But you've given me a new term. From today, I will call it practicing delight. And even just saying it makes it feel special. And guys, hey, listen, practice your delight. In 2023, we need to go in hard on the delight business. Thank you so much, Simon. Lao Tzu, a Chinese philosopher, said that being loved by someone gives you strength, while loving someone deeply gives you courage. Well, you're married now. Congrats. And then you've also talked about the power of community, setting yourself in an arrangement of community. From your experience in these kinds of setups, would you say that Lao Tzu is right? What's your perspective on this?
Well, I would say there's a lot of it's profound to begin with, which I resonate with because like for me it makes sense in terms of my faith, knowing that I first love because God loved me. So there's a sense of understanding that I'm deeply loved by God. it shapes who I am. It shapes a lot of my values. It's such a profound way of discover yourself in a sense. So there's a way that when you know that you're deeply loved, and for me, that's of course by God, it helps you to become yourself. And then it makes you the secure person. And when you become secure, you are not afraid of venturing out. You're not afraid of loving others. You're not afraid of giving yourself, because sometimes what really prevents us from, going out there, it's because we're afraid of being hurt. Based on how we've grown up, based on how we've learned to attach, we tend to feel like if I open up myself to the world, I'll get hurt, or no one understands, or I won't be affirmed. And so being loved gives you security, and it gives you the courage to be able to extend that love to other people. So I would say I do agree to some extent. I see the profundity in the Chinese philosopher, and I see how that relates and integrates with my faith. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but if not, you can, where you need clarity, I can clarify.
Yes, you have. I love it. And that it's rooted in God, because for me, that's the most stable ship you can be on. It doesn't matter where the winds are coming from, as long as you understand at the depths of it that you're anchored on a love that is unwavering, satisfying. It does not dry up. It's unconditional. It gives you courage to extend that love to others, if I understood you correctly. So it does definitely fit into my picture and definition of love. So yeah, lucky for us, it's February, the month of love, and Valentine's Day is coming up. So wrap it all up for us, Simon. You've given us your story, very profound and beautiful story. It stands out to me in different aspects that we can talk about towards the end. But what would you tell the youth in Africa about finding and embracing deep, authentic love?
Well, I would say that first it begins with, the acceptance of that love. Just knowing who you are, knowing that God loves you. And then once you accept that, of course, there's a sense it frees you to become truly who, the best version of who you can be on this side of heaven. I call it that way. So there's a sense of knowing that you're deeply loved and deeply known, and it frees you to be yourself. Knowing that if I do something wrong, it doesn't make me to be loved less. Or because it can put that pressure where you feel like I need to do this to be loved, but understanding that I am loved, and so acting from the point of love. So discovering and accepting this love from God, I would say that is the first step. And then once you accept this love, it starts to transform you. And transforming you, it sets you on a journey of discovering and unlearning some things, because of the brokenness of the world, there are some things that are not perfect. Like we're supposed to grow in a perfect environment, but that's not our reality. So we tend to have these distorted capacities in us that disorder us in a way. And knowing and accepting that God's love, you begin this journey of getting into secure attachments. So we have distorted forms of attachments as we grow up, and so there's a lot of discovering. I would say, like, yes, I'm married, and so every day I discover that I'm selfish in a way, and that's not what God desires me to be. So it helps me know myself, discover my shortcomings, but in a space where I can grow. So I am not afraid to make mistakes. I'm not afraid for God to point out some of these things in me that are not in line with His love for me, because He's the only one who can love perfectly. But being broken, we can't love perfectly. So it's first of all discovering and accepting that God's love, and then allowing that love to transform you as you begin this healing journey. So discovering more about yourself, because if you don't heal, you won't be able to love well. and you don't heal in an instant. It's a journey. So just having those honest conversations with yourself, why do I react this way? Why am I like this? But then in a safe space and a safe environment where you can see these distortions and be able to correct them. And that's where community comes in, because they help foster that sense of security and allows you the freedom to make these corrections and grow towards being a secure human being who knows that they are fully loved and fully known, and because of that they can be able to extend that kind of love. I hope I have not been so spiritual over it, but I believe that's the way to go.
Luckily, you're in spiritual hands, so it does not sound off to me. And listening to you speak, putting together the concept of accepting the love, opening yourself up to it, discovery, submission to leadership, because you mentioned that leadership under a pastor, submitting and opening yourself up to community. For me, one word to capture it all is surrender. Surrendering to the process. As a child who grew up in a somewhat problematic environment, I can only imagine the amount of surrender that had to come within you to follow this process of knowing, learning, relearning, and giving yourself a chance at love on a daily basis. So that bit of your story has been very inspirational to me, and I hope that the youth listening to us will be able to extract the nuggets of this session and take themselves to that love and that spiritually low place where you have nothing and no point to prove. You just let yourself go. You accept the newness and uniqueness of love. So thank you so much, Simon. I have really enjoyed your story, and I'm personally inspired and looking forward to see what the future unfolds for you and your wife.
Thank you so much. Like I said, it might look all rosy, but again, it's a journey. I've cried so many times, even being in that space, because I'm still going through, the healing process. You discover a lot of, the narratives, the false narratives that you picked up while growing up, like sometimes feeling like I'm all alone, just informed by how you learn to attach. So it's a process. So allow yourself time for that. And again, I love my faith in the sense that, God allows you that space to come to Him, and He points something in you. It's not that He's condemning you, but He's pointing you so that you can change it. So it's an exciting journey, I would say that, because I love the kind of intimacy that I have with God, because sometimes I realize some of these things in my life that are ugly, that I don't like, but then I don't hide them, because I know I can come to God and say, God, I've realized that I'm selfish in this way, and I need your help to help me, change this. So it's not just about knowing what you need to do, but also being empowered on what to do. So it's a journey. So be patient with yourself and be patient with people around you, and know that as you're being formed and healed and being brought to this wholeness, that everyone is on that journey, and just extending that grace to other people who are still growing. I think marriage is that space where you realize that a lot that you need to change to become a loving person. I have enjoyed the short time that I've been married, but it has helped me to see also some things in me that God is changing. So it's a beautiful journey. So patience, and extending grace, and realizing that other people are as broken as you are. And everyone, is on some place in the journey. So just being gracious to everyone.
All right. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in to this episode of the Storybook Podcast and listened in to the end. I don't know about you, but for me, myself and I'm very inspired to just embrace love, to fall in love, but first I need to find the love, okay? So send me all your prayers, send me all your good wishes, and I hope that this February is actually the turnaround time for you to find that special person who is going to bring beauty into your life. And if you already have that person, listen, when I grow up, I want to be like you. Be blessed, and I hope that we're going to get to show up and get the courage to love others, extend unconditional love to others, and honor them. for this is how we expand our world, and we are able to just create beauty in what we have. Be sure to follow us on all our social media pages. Be sure to like this podcast and share it with a friend.
So be sure to connect with us on social media at thestorybook_ENT on Instagram, The Storybook ENT on Facebook, at storybook_ENT on Twitter.